Right, I'm delighted to welcome today Chris Turrell, who I've come to know as a result of, well, initially some networking, but I think Chris will explain that in his introduction. So over to you, Chris, if you can just give us a little bit of detail about your background and what your journey's been over the last 18 months or so.
Okay, Steve. Well, thank you very much for inviting me along to have this chat. So yeah, I'm Chris Turrell. I've been working very securely in the financial services for over 30 years, and got to a stage where there was an opportunity to take redundancy, and I thought I wanted to do that. I just felt that I wanted to step outside of that industry just to see what else was around. Little did I realise that just before I took the redundancy, that IR35 legislation was going to kick in, and then COVID was going to kick in. I also had my father passed away, so I was obviously executing his estate and having to deal with all of that, come to terms with that. So it was a very challenging time, and obviously the job market seemed to have gone a little bit down the pan. So there was a lot of insecurity or uncertainty going on, and Brexit as well. All of that kind of stuff was quite unknown. So I then crossed paths with yourself, Steve, in May last year, and we've been then working together a little bit since then. There's a lot of stuff we've been doing together collaboratively, and also you helping me. And things have definitely been quite eye-opening for me in terms of where I was and the challenges I've faced, and how the marketplace was.
Right, well, let's explore some of that, Chris.
Yeah.
You've clearly got a much better memory than me. But I seem to recall we met as a result of the infamous Dan Reed, the career dad.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I was spending a bit of time on LinkedIn doing what I thought was, the most important thing in terms of trying to get myself another role. And as you do, you come across certain people that really you resonate with. And I really liked his bravery as being like a career dad, but he also in a very senior position. I think he works for Barclays, and some stuff with him. And then you popped up on one of his interviews, and I think I just sent you a message afterwards, didn't I, just to say how I really resonated with the things that you were saying. Just found it really not necessarily seeking anything, but just wanted to give you some positive feedback, really, and how you resonated with me. And then you got in contact, and then we did some collaboration on your fantastic online course.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a good start point in terms of the difference over the last year or so post-COVID. I mean, this is all about job searching in the COVID era, this interview. And if you think pre-COVID, it's probably much less likely that you would have found me through a podcast of somebody else that maybe you wouldn't have necessarily even found in the first place.
Well, that's right. He was doing a COVID-related sort of lockdown communication, really.
That's right, yeah.
His sort of his secondary activity was outside of his main job, and he was just doing this for fun, I guess, or he recognised there was opportunity there because other people were obviously experiencing the same issues, and obviously there are a lot of dads out there that were trying to balance things as well. So there are positives that have come out of COVID.
Yeah. So how do you see when you first took redundancy and it was your choice, yeah?
Yeah.
How do you see the job search approach has changed from back then? What's that, 18 months ago?
Well, I think this is a tricky one, because I hadn't externally applied for a role since I was 16. So I didn't know what the job seeking market was like. I'd done a little bit of research, and I think most importantly, it's my strategy that has changed since I first started. My first strategy was get myself out there, get on all the job boards, make sure that I'm present, make sure that I'm getting all these notifications of the right jobs, because surely that's got to be a more effective way of than me trying to find them, getting the notifications. But what I found, unfortunately, is over 400 or 500 jobs that were all appropriate, I had the skills for. Out of all of them, I didn't get one contact back. I might have got some, dear Johns or thank you, but
yeah,
else. But I didn't get any progress with any of those particular that approach. And obviously working with you, and as part of your book and your course, one of the things that is talked about is around networking. And really, the power of networking I've found is incredible. But it's got to be positive networking. You can't. I've seen very lazy networking where you put yourself out there on LinkedIn and kind of give me a job situation, right?
yeah,
So
give us a job.
That's not networking.
Yeah.
Give and take. So and I think as you would, I think you've really fed back to me that you've seen how I've kind of developed in the networking world in terms of most of the stuff you do in terms of networking for other people is free. So by sharing other people's pages, by sharing your content, by sharing, it doesn't cost me anything. It's 2 seconds, 3 seconds of sharing and helping other people, or even giving input or my feedback or whatever it might be. That also creates really positive interactions, and people remember that. They remember that you've done things for them.
Yeah.
And I've certainly experienced where, and it's never where you expect it to come from, but where I've actually provided positive things for other people or done things for other people that have cost me nothing in time or effort, that they've remembered that, and I've suddenly got something back from it in terms of a recommendation or a lead or whatever it might be. And I just found that it's just really rewarding, because I like to help other people anyway. I don't know people that don't. But at the same time, if you are putting yourself out there, you're creating a presence on LinkedIn, and you've got to be on there all the time, because you never know who's watching. You never know who's actually at the right time looking at stuff. So you've got to be kind of creating content on a regular basis, putting yourself out there, making your presence felt, so that at the right time, when that right person is there, they're going to see you and you have that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's two aspects to that, Chris. Basically, it's the classic giver's gain.
Yeah.
But also there's this perspective of it's changing your whole perception about what networking is about, as you said. Yeah. So it instead of turning it from a chore, which a lot of people see it as, it's turning it into an integral part of who you are, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And certainly from my perspective, I've noticed a massive difference in terms of your approach from when we first met, and you start to develop your own online personality, shall we say. It becomes your personal brand. And
I think certainly, Steve, I think certainly from what I've seen, there's a lot of people that are almost scared to be representing themselves in that way, and they're almost career robots. It's where's your personality? And if they're like that in interviews as well, it's not going to really benefit them. I think if you have any kind of charisma or personality at all, you need to be telling people what you're about, what you believe in, and that you are, the right sort of person. And ultimately, if an employer isn't seeking that person, that they want that career robot, then you're not right for them anyway.
Absolutely. But the other thing you were saying there, Chris, is in terms of the overall approach and changing your thinking and so on. It really is something that so many professionals and executives still find alien. And I'm at the point of my new Winning Through Career Change course of actually recording about this, so it's uppermost in my mind. I find it remarkable that in the 21st century digital age, there are so many professionals and executives who still turn their back on social media and LinkedIn, or they make their profiles private, which is even more bizarre, isn't it? You know, at the time when you want to be found and you want people to help you through a challenging time, then why do that? And the other aspect to that, which is the other thing that was going through my head, which I just lost the moment for, is the fact that you never know who can unlock the key to your future. And this is something I say all the time, as you know, Chris. And as you say, it's often the most surprising people who will suddenly pick up on something that you post or just something you get, a discussion you get involved with, and they'll connect with you, and all of a sudden it's a bit like how we met in the first place. You just don't know where these things are going to go. And obviously I'm indebted to you for road testing my initial Winning Through Redundancy and Layoffs course, because I could see that you would benefit from your situation, but equally it was a win-win because I could tell you were a very analytical sort of person, and you don't bullshit. You were going to tell me how it is, which is exactly what you did, which was great. So as a result,
but also, Steve, it's very rewarding for me as well, because I was at that time after the career change, and all of a sudden everything that I had known in terms of security in jobs and working and what I thought I was, everything had been suddenly taken away. And I was floundering a bit, to be honest with you. And I kind of needed to firm things up, but I didn't quite know how to. So just by having you contact me and say, I contact you initially, but then you come back to me and say, would you like to road test this course? Gave me some reason. It gave me some very confidence about myself in terms that I was able to provide, feedback to you, and that was being well received and all that kind of stuff, because it can be quite a lonely and dark place if either you are forced to be made redundant or you take redundancy and things don't quite pan out as you expect them to, but ultimately, getting back to what you said, if I hadn't have taken redundancy, I wouldn't have learned the things I've learned from you. I wouldn't have learned the things I know that I've been doing some other personal coaching with a guy called James Boardman, the man coach. So both of those things combined, you could say things happen for a reason, but both those things combined have completely changed the way my mindset is about what I think is important, about careers, about what I do for a living, about work-life balance and what is important to me, and actually taking ownership of my life and my career and my planning to make sure that I'm getting where I want to be. I'm not letting life kind of take me in a direction. I'm actually taking control of it, and I'm actually getting to do the things I want to do with an end game in place in terms of where I want to be in 10 years. But
absolutely. I mean, it's what I call becoming the architect of your own future, Chris.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So you've been on this long voyage of self-discovery. What would you say are the key things, maybe the 2 or 3 key things that have made the difference in finally achieving a successful job outcome, Chris?
I think one of the things, and I'm sure that you understand this as well, Steve, is that I had great content from you. I had great content from James as well, but I wasn't probably quite ready in May when I started this course with you. And although I had all this kind of stuff, if I'm being honest with myself now, when I look back at May, I wasn't ready. And it's only when I can make this stuff happen.
Yeah.
And it's probably fairly obvious. It's the whole taking the horse to water situation. But I can make it happen when I'm ready. And I know that's part of your, accepting and letting go. and I kind of didn't really do that until probably a couple of months afterwards. But I would suggest that the content I got from you and James were the catalyst for me to start that journey to starting to accept and let go. And obviously there was a lot of things that have been going on, as I said, about COVID, about my father passing, and the career, obviously not having any success in anything, putting myself out there and nothing's coming back, and it's like, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. But as I say, that was one of the key things is certainly about that, in terms of, you've got to be ready to do it yourself. And you don't even know really when you are ready, but you can try. Secondly, I think I kind of alluded to it a little bit, is actually taking control of, I think James Boardman calls it being an elite operator. It sounds quite grand, but what it is actually thinking, looking at the things that are important to me, my personal development, my career, my relationships, and my health. Okay, so rather than necessarily things that are, what did we refer to them as earlier, things that have value or money, materialistic outcomes.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's actually about the things that are most important.
Yeah. So in my courses, this is basically the wheel of life, looking at the different segments of your life. And also it's very much, I think what you're talking about, Chris, is your values, which is the key essence of.
Absolutely right.
Well, I was
so which allowed me, Steve, to look at things like, what do I need to do on a daily basis to be, in 10 years' time, still have a great relationship with my daughters, who will be 16 and 14 then, right? I can only but try. but what do I need to do on a daily basis in terms of those relationships? I'd never even thought about that stuff. I just thought about career.
Yeah.
But it's really important, and it just, so that's I'd say a second thing, in terms of giving me the right and the ownership on where I want to be and what I want to achieve in career, in personal development. As an example, I'm now doing some charity stuff for schools, which I never thought that would be on my horizon at all. But actually able to add value, to give input to kids leaving school, thinking about, I wish I could have been told when I was 16, 15, what I know now, not just about the important things in life in terms of, getting a job for life or whatever it is. Actually, what measuring what your values are and what you're good for, not letting other people measure that for you, and actually that's not actually important, what other people,
living by your own vision and dreams.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, but what you're describing there, Chris, is also interesting, because I always say that career and life are inextricably linked. And I get the feeling that you didn't necessarily recognize that until you've been through this process over the last 18 months.
No, because I was measuring myself on other people's measurement of me, firstly. And secondly, I was looking at the material versions of things, thinking how important they were, versus what was really important, which was the daily relationships. There's no point sweating your bits off every day, every month, working really, really hard to get this amazing salary, if you're not seeing your children, your relationship with your wife is going to end up, going away, and all of a sudden next you're just another stat as a divorcee. It's where you want to be in 10 years' time. And yes, obviously we all want to be secure financially, but also we want to be secure with our relationships as well.
Yeah, this is another, dare I suggest, another interesting facet of the COVID era and crisis, and a real positive is that so many people have started to challenge their thinking about their job or career, and actually ask deeper, meaningful questions in terms of, well, am I actually achieving my true potential? Am I doing any meaningful or work that is moving me towards achieving my potential or purpose or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah.
Or am I just doing a job that's a means to an end? And it's remarkable how many people, I mean, there's been loads of posts on social media about this, people saying, well, I realised that my job is totally meaningless. So I now need to start to think differently. So I think that's a big positive out of what all this awful stuff we've seen over 2020. So what would you say in terms of yourself, Chris? What have you learned about yourself along the way?
I think that I've worked out that I'm quite resilient. And if I look back at what I was facing last year, and to really, you know, people have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, having some of those things whipped away, some of the sort of concrete structures that you kind of take for granted, or I have taken for granted, that suddenly disappeared, and it's a sink or swim situation. So I think I've been quite resilient. I've learned a lot about myself in terms that if I'm in control of, if I understand what I want to do, where my areas of development are, or weaknesses, I'm happy to say the weaknesses, where there's, what do I want to achieve, that puts me in control. And I need that. It allows me to be taking control of things on a daily basis and a weekly basis, just doing the 1% a week of trying to improve something about what I'm doing, or my relationships, or my personal development, or whatever it might be. Just that 1% a week makes a difference, and it just builds and builds and builds, so that you've got that end position in place of where you think you want to be, and that will change, that will amend, and you can it'll diverge, but that's fine. It's so much better than letting life take you the way it's just going to take you, and you get to the end game and go, the approach I'm taking, I will not have regrets, and that's the most important thing for me.
Yeah,
both health and whatever, all that kind of stuff. So that's certainly the most important thing.
So how has your job search changed throughout this 18-month period?
Well, so I've scrapped all the job, right? I've even deleted all the emails coming through, because they're just a waste of they're just waste of effort and zapping your brain, really. You don't need it. Everything has been around networking. All the opportunities I've had are through people that I've spoken to, that I know. And it's really incredible to me that, LinkedIn is a little bit like a version of Facebook. If you use it the right way, it can be very positive, and we know how negative things can be if you use it the wrong way. So, but it, just because you're not getting notifications or likes or things like that on the post you're having, doesn't mean people aren't looking. Because I've had people contact me that I haven't spoken to for 20 years, get back in contact with me and say, really like that thing that you wrote about this, that, and the other. Just because they didn't annotate against that or comment or whatever it might be, it doesn't mean people aren't looking. So people have been monitoring what I've been doing, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, completely unexpected, not knowing that they've even been aware of what's going on, or that there's even interested. Oh, Chris, I've heard that there's a new opportunity coming through here. Would you, is this something that would be right for you? That sort of thing. So scrap the job boards, done that. Positive networking, adding value to other people as well. And as I say, the reward I get, even though it costs me nothing to do it, the reward I get is immense. I feel like I'm making a change for other people, and positive outcomes for other people. That's just who I am. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. And by concentrating on those sort of strengths, I'm getting rewards back. And also my interviews, I think I'm saying the same things that I used to say, but I have a different element of confidence now about that the interview is a two-way thing. Are these guys right for me?
That's absolutely the right way to look at it. But what the point you made about people not necessarily liking your comments or your posts on LinkedIn, that's a really interesting one, Chris, because I think we all
not disliking, but just not positive affirmation.
Yeah. but I think we all get hung up about the number of
Yeah,
likes and engagement and so on, which we
absolutely.
do get.
Yeah,
But I can relate to that because my LinkedIn Winning Through group, um, I mean, one of the things, as you know, I did in lockdown was to reignite that, and it moved from nearly 200 members to 400 or so now, which is great. I mean, it's still small fry uh, in relation to what I was hoping to achieve in terms of 1,000, but it's not about the numbers necessarily.
no,
And yet, with that, sometimes there's posts that go out on there, not just from myself, but from other people. And I think, well, that really merits some really, you
yeah,
know, good engagement and discussion. And yet there's
yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I've actually had conversations with people about some of these posts. And they said, "Oh, that was amazing, Steve. That was
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant." And I said, "Well, why
yeah,
didn't you comment on it?" And
yeah,
they said, "Well,
yeah.
I saw it and I really liked it, but
It it
it
costs
gets a bit
nothing.
much."
It
Yeah,
costs nothing, doesn't it? And I think so certainly I've become aware that, especially if you look at all the divisive stuff going on in the media and what have you, everybody has got a point of view about everything, and everything's so divisive. But mostly it's because of selfish views. It's because people most often are thinking, what's in it for me? I'm
yeah.
not
Oh,
if I
I
like
agree.
the way. And it's like, well, that's fine. That's just how people tick. But don't kind of measure your own feedback or your success on your engagement on LinkedIn by what you're getting back from it, because you just don't know how positive that might be.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
So what have you learned about yourself, Chris? You've alluded to certain things in terms of becoming more resilient, but you have changed as a person, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that as I say, I know that I have weaknesses in terms of things I need to concentrate on and work on a day-to-day basis, and taking ownership and control of those things. I know that I am really sort of talented in a way that I didn't know I was. So it's not, how can I put this? So it's not necessarily skill sets necessarily in terms of things that I've learned. I've learned a great deal from my previous employer, that when I've come out of that employment, because they're a very robust company, when I've worked in other companies, little did I realize how valuable to them I am because of the things that I brought with me. So sometimes when I was maybe in self-doubt about, well, actually, what am I selling myself as? What am I? Why does somebody want to employ me? You know, Only by going through the process of working with these other companies, I've realized that the assets and the capabilities I've got, tweak the LinkedIn, the CV accordingly, because I've recognized I've got this stuff to almost sell as my product, as it were. And that's all of a sudden where I'm getting a different interest from. So
But
that that
but above all else, Chris,
mm,
you are the product, and
absolutely right. Yeah,
maybe that is one of the biggest realizations. You're now focusing on you
yeah,
and what Chris Turrell, as a person, not just your
yeah.
skill set, but as a person, can offer to a potential employer, and that's a massive difference, isn't it?
And also, I think when I sort of alluded to this with the interviews earlier, but when I'm in interviews now, when people talk about, who are you and what are you, and what's your values about your career, I'm not giving these robot answers anymore that I think that probably you can find lots of them online to do. I'm saying, and what people are resonating with is, I'm a family man. What's really important to me, that I've got a decent work-life balance. This what's really important to me is that I am bringing value to my role, that I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm getting a kick out of what I'm doing, and I'm adding value. That those three things are probably the most important thing about me.
So people are appreciating the fact that you are being totally authentic, Chris. I think that's
Well, I think that's it. And by being authentic and being the best version of yourself, people buy into that. you know, or not. And if they don't, then you probably don't want to work for them anyway, because they want a robot. They don't want to.
Yeah. So
So,
if you had your time again, Chris, over
oh,
these last 18 months,
right.
what
Yeah.
would you do differently, if anything?
Um, I would obviously, I can't get that time back that I spent adapting my CV for all the job boards and all that kind of ineffective networking when I'm just chasing recruiters, right? You know, you've got to turn that around and let them chase you. Do the networking, get yourself out there, present yourself for who you are. You know, and I know that I probably wasn't ready until later on last year to do it. But if I could have started the process a bit earlier, you know, if I could have, you know, if I could have found James Boardman a bit earlier, the process would have started a bit earlier, and I would have been able to recognise that the opportunities that I had to look at things in a different way, take ownership of things, that would have definitely allowed me to be in a better place earlier. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, people say timing is everything. And, you know, it's
Yeah.
one of these strange things, isn't it? You know, when I went through my transition many years ago, um, I think you do go on you go on your own voyage of self-discovery, whether you get help or not, but
Yeah.
it's an evolution, isn't it? And I think there are certain triggers, there are certain catalysts, if you like, you know, whether it was my course or the other one you went on, that
Yeah.
suddenly switch the light bulb on, don't they?
Yeah.
And you think,
Absolutely right.
right, hang on a minute, maybe this is how I need to start looking at things. So it's that whole change of perspective, isn't it?
So yeah. So I think that, you know, my two key messages that I would give is, because you and I have both had this same experience where something's happened and that's caused us to go on this journey. You know, why wait for that to happen? You know, take a review now, um, of where you are and what's important to you and where you want to be in 10 years' time, because that 10 years will come and go very quickly. And, you know, you could find yourself running out of time, and you don't want to be regretful that you didn't do something about it earlier just because it was comfortable. Yeah, you sort
So,
of,
in terms of your advice to other people and professionals and executives who are not just casualties of redundancy, Chris, you're
no,
actually saying to people in
absolutely.
general,
Yeah.
review your situation or reevaluate your
Yeah,
situation now, because you only get one shot at this.
absolutely. You know, don't let your self limitations and time eat away at your potential.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful quote. As you know, Chris, I'm big into quotes. Wonderful Abraham Lincoln quote, which I use in some
Yeah,
of my work. And it says it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years that count.
absolutely.
And I think
Absolutely.
that's the biggest mistake that so many of us make. I mean, you can see
Yeah,
the sign behind me, follow
yeah,
your dreams. Um, yeah, so few people do, don't they?
absolutely. And you know, let's be honest as well. You know, not everybody is financially in a position that they have the ability to just go, oh, do you know what? I'll have a little review and I'll go out on a different course, because they might financially just not be able to do it. But even in that situation, it's okay. Where am I going to be in 10 years' time? You know, at least be at peace that you're in charge of that outcome, and that's the way you're going to go. That's what's going to happen. You know, I think that's one of the things that I probably have done, which is most important to me over the last 12 months, is become at peace with, I guess, the art of the possible. Because anything, you know, when I first started talking to you, it was almost, it was like overwhelming in terms of what the opportunities might be. But then, and all of those opportunities are tangible, but there's realistic elements as well in terms of my own desire, my own amount of energy that I can put into things, about how much time it would take away from my family if I was to do my own thing, my own business or whatever it might be. So I had to come to terms and be at peace with myself that I'm not going to do those things, and these are the reasons why.
Mm.
But at the same time, for the other stuff where I have the opportunity and it does fit with the narrative of what the work-life balance and everything, that's what I'm going to be, and that's who I am, and that's what my values are. So, I think there's a lot of things considered. I've sometimes seen these things, and I am kind of aware that not everybody's in the most favorable position where they have the ability just to give it all up and go and do something else.
No, absolutely. But there's no reason why people can't work at it while they're
Of
still
course.
in their current situation.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely
Yeah.
right. And as I said before, even if they know they can't change, taking awareness of that and being at peace with that now will save any regret later when they look back.
I mean, I think something
So
else.
regretful,
Yeah, well, there's nothing worse than having regrets, is there?
Absolutely.
But I think another thing that's come out of this sort of COVID era is the fact that people now, I'm recommending to my clients to think, well, short term, next 6 months, medium term, 6 to 12 months, longer term, 12 months plus.
Yeah.
And the world is going to be a different place in
Of
12
course.
to 18 months. So, don't just look at everything as just one opportunity. You can, whether we like it or not, people are changing jobs and careers all the time now, not just because the rug's being pulled from them, but because of what you're saying, Chris, they're actually thinking differently. So if you think of a job or career in shorter blocks, then you're going to have much more chance of doing what
absolutely.
you've got.
And the way I look at it, it's a bit like Project Me. So I look at 10 years time. You've got a project plan for that 10 years, and you've got to be doing these activities on your Gantt chart. What has to happen in order to be able to achieve that. But you've got to start doing it now. There's no point waiting for 7 years and then realizing you're not going to do it. So you've got to plan it out from the live date to now. And of course, in the meantime, change requests come in. So it's just but you adapt to them. You look at them and go, okay, how does that change what I'm trying to achieve in that time? And you amend accordingly.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably in terms of yourself, Chris, and maybe how you've changed, which maybe you hadn't necessarily thought about, but you're clearly much more adaptable and flexible now than maybe you were 18 months ago. And these are absolutely key attributes that anyone's going to need in these crazy, challenging times. So a final question, Chris, and I say this all the time, that jobs are like buses. You had nothing for months and months and months, and all of a sudden the buses come along. How did you determine what jobs out of the opportunities that you were going to take more seriously as against the others, and ultimately make your decisions? Because I think a lot of people, the market seems to be on the up again, which is great. And I think a lot of job seekers are going to be in this situation where all of a sudden they're going to be potentially not necessarily overwhelmed, but from very little happening, all of a sudden it's all going on. So how did you decide yourself in terms of which jobs to go for and take seriously?
Well, I think one of the things was about taking the emotion out of it. So, you might have, at certain stages, I had 5 different recruiters banging on my door about particular jobs. And I'm thinking, oh, what a lovely problem to have. This is great. And by the end of the 5, by the process has run its course, none of them come to fruition. Okay, so and so you get too excited about it, all right, about those situations, that's only going to make you feel worse if they don't proceed. So it's taking that emotion out of it, just looking at the roles. I do a little bit of research. I use Glassdoor. I think it's brilliant. It's like like a
TripAdvisor, isn't it?
TripAdvisor for careers, I think is what I've called it for. Which is great because you get insight for what the place is like. So that's great, and you can see other people that might be working there, or you know people and you might be able to tap them up, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But it's really the most important thing is, are they sitting with my values? The job spec, you know, I don't want to be completely over. One of the things I've decided, I don't want to be completely challenging myself on new sets of jobs and skills and capabilities that I haven't got. You know, I want an element of comfort. I want to be quite capable of what I'm doing. You know, obviously there's always opportunity to grow, and I intend to do that, but I don't want to make it particularly hard for myself. You know.
Well, I think what comes through loud and clear, Chris, is that it's important for you to grow personally,
yeah,
but not necessarily professionally. And
no,
I think that's the difference between personal development and professional development. And I think there's a lot of confusion around that.
absolutely.
But, you know,
Going back to the old 10-year plan, Steve, you know, the old, where do you want to be in 10 years? When I ever heard that question throughout my career, I just assumed, and I know it was asked from a career perspective, but I always answered it in a career perspective. And actually, that's all the wrong way round. And so all these kids that I'm dealing with in this charity stuff, where I'm basically saying to them, know your value. Don't judge your value based upon other people's perception of it. You know, it's self-limiting. Know your own value, what you're trying to achieve, have your own plan of where you want to be, you know, on those 4 particular pillars around not just career and personal development, but around relationships and around health as well. You know, all of it is important.
But it's about being the best person that you can be, the best version of you can be, and I think that's where you've made massive leaps, Chris.
Oh, absolutely.
One thing you haven't alluded to, and I think we better finish off on this one. You've talked about recruiters, but I know you have a view on recruiters. If you were giving advice to other, you know, people watching this video, what would your advice be about working with recruiters? Would you be saying be very selective? What would your advice be?
With anything, I never say no. Okay, with anything, I never kind of, you know, just because I've had one bad experience with one recruiter doesn't mean that I don't want to talk to recruiters. I have come across a handful of good recruiters. If you think about how long I've been working for and how many recruiters I might have come across, you know, I think there's a personality type, and I think you've just got to be understanding what they're all about as a personality type. They're recruiters because of a particular personality type, and that is why they're good at being recruiters. So when you're not hearing back from them, you know, it's not about shaming them or say getting the ump about it or whatever. You just, that's them. You know, remove the emotion from it. Don't waste your energy on poor recruiters if they haven't come back to you. If they suddenly come back to you again, and this is a great example. I've had one recently that's actually secured a new role. Previously, when I applied for this actually the same role, I didn't hear back from her, and I was, you know, so I thought, okay, so I'm hearing from her again. I didn't hear back from her last time. But it just is what it is. I'm not going to then not take the opportunity to go with that role or that opportunity just because that recruiter may not have come back to me last time. You know, you've got to look at it in the big scheme of things, and maybe
like the sort of scattergun approach with CVs and jobs, which clearly doesn't work. Would you agree that you're better off developing closer relationships with a number of recruiters, a small number, rather than going?
I think, right, okay, so I think like job boards, if you're scattergunning out with all these different jobs, knowing, you know, and from experience you don't hear back from them, approaching recruiters is probably not as productive as recruiters that approach you and creating the relationship with them. So I've got 2 or 3 that are really, a handful rather, that are really good. But but then they're the ones that are contacting me. you know, at the end of the day, they've got an agenda. And if they're not looking for someone at that time, it's very, very unlikely they're going to remember Chris Turrell from 6 months ago, or Chris Turrell that keeps knocking on my door every week. You know, if the roles aren't there, they're not going to tap you up for them. You know,
so you're suggesting, and I have to agree with you, Chris, that look at recruiters as a means to tap you up, rather than the other way round, and then develop the relationship from there. And again, this comes full circle, because surely the better your online brand and presence, the more likely you are going to be tapped up by recruiters who understand who you are and what you got to offer.
Yeah, because they're seeing you know, don't get me wrong. It's nothing wrong with following them and them being your contacts, because your stuff will be appearing, your content will be appearing in front of them more regularly, and especially if you're, and that might be the key in them ringing you, because the fact that they're going, oh, Chris, yeah, I remember you from before, 6 months ago, whatever it might have been, but there's jobs now come up. You know, I'm not talking about them being car salesmen, okay? But you wouldn't keep going to car showrooms asking them for the Ferrari until they've got one in stock, right? So why would you keep contacting recruiters for your role that they may not actually have?
No, I couldn't agree more. Well, it's been very enlightening, Chris, and from my perspective, I've thoroughly enjoyed this interview, but I've also enjoyed watching your progress and seeing you develop and grow as a person, so that you have managed to achieve the success you deserve. So good luck in your new job, and
thank you, Steve.
I'm sure that the future will be bright for you in 2021.
And just one last thing, Steve. Available in all good bookshops.
Well, not so much in all good bookshops. There aren't many of them left, but more so. Thank you for that plug. But more
That's
so
right.
On Amazon or my Career Catalyst website. But great.
But I know that you're working on stuff or content around not just the redundancy, and I think really that will be. I'm really hoping that, you know, people see the value of that, because, as I said before, you shouldn't wait until you've made redundant or something's forced upon you to review where you are and what you're doing in your career. And I really hope that, you know, your next challenge is rewarding and gets the recognition it deserves.
Yeah, thank you for those kind words. Yes, that'll be my Winning Through Career Change new online course. So all the best, Chris, and thanks a million for being my guest today.
Look forward to seeing it, Steve. Cheers.